No problem. All right, hey guys, welcome to the things I wish I knew before starting a home edition. Basically, the goal is that I'm gonna go through a couple of my experiences. Hopefully, you'll get some insights on them, and then the biggest part too is just making sure that while you're looking at your home edition, you're looking at your current space, you're seeing the possibilities of what it could be, but yet not at the expense of like all the codes and stuff like that. Because you can make an incredible addition. You can make a really cool kitchen layout with an addition and then put the city permits in, and all of a sudden they're like, nope, you don't have enough impervious ground, or oh, your energy heal isn't high enough. There's just so many little things, but we're not going to cover each one of those. But today we're going to do our best to go through our. We're going to do our best to really go through some of the things that I've seen here in the past little bit, and then of course anybody as you do come on, make sure you say hello, wave or whatnot, or ask any questions as I go through this, and then we'll keep going through. All right, let's share the screen. And I am not a Zoom pro, so be kind and courteous to me as I go through this. All right. So real quick about myself, my wife and I have been married for almost 11 years now. Uh, I grew up in the construction trade. This is what I've done since I was a kid. My dad was a general contractor in Big Lake, Minnesota. And then also, some of the things that we've done is as soon as we got married, we actually traveled and moved to Guatemala. So I went back and forth from Guatemala probably for like maybe first trip was 3 months, and then it went from 6 to 7 to 8 months. I would go there for 7 years in a row, and we worked with kids in high risk situations. And when I came back in 2017 from traveling, my dad's like, hey, I started a company called XtraMile. Do you want to join me? I told him hell no, I did not want to join him. And uh we just had different working lives. But then my wife's like, hey, you're really good at what you do. You should join them. And then eventually she joined me. So I'm here with the short hair. And then my wife and I run XtraMile Construction with my dad, DJ. And he's kind of like a Jedi. You see him, but you don't always get to see him. But he's always present in our business. And then, of course, our project manager, Will. And then besides this, we have other multiple team members that we work with. But this is the core team that are, depending on the communication our customers are working with. All right. Any questions so far? We're doing good. Perfect. Okay, so all right. So when it comes to expanding your house, right? There's so many different things, but the biggest thing that happens, I think I found, is so many people become paralyzed in just the idea of having an addition. I mean, some houses, there's really only one type of addition you can have. So if you're in an HOA, or if you're in a house, if you have like a quarter acre property or a half acre property in the city, there's only so much you can do. Once you start getting to an acre, 3/4 an acre, anything bigger than that, you really get a lot more freedom. And of course, money has to do with it as well. But let's come back a little bit. One of the first things that happen when I come and meet with a homeowner about an addition is a lot of times they've already searched Google, they've looked at their neighbors' houses, and they have gotten so much information that actually disables the creativity that it may need for a certain type of an addition, right? Um, Let me go here. So a couple things that we want to start off with, right, is thinking about the main the main area of the addition, right? So for example, first thing that I had to see when we were looking at this house, before I can even pull a permit or anything like that, is I was looking at the septic. So there's a well here, and then they also have a mound system septic that goes over here with the drain field, that goes on the north of their property. So the goal for these guys was to do the biggest addition possible on the back of their house. They have lived there for probably nearly 35 years or so, and they're one of the first owners in their home. And so when they were on to do the addition, they really wanted to keep the uniqueness of the inside of their home and not have it look like an addition. And obviously, no matter what you do, you will know that's a different type of house or whatnot. But let me share a little bit more here. So when we're looking at this, I think, let's see here. I don't know if I have the greatest image of it. I think I'm gonna just show you the floor plan. Let's just look at the floor plan. Be way faster. All right. So basically, when we're looking at the addition, the first thing that we want to do, right, is so their current house inside is here, right? So this area above is the addition with the deck. So when we were looking at how big the addition can go, the first thing that we had to do is look at the city setbacks. So we have a well. Hopefully my little trigger thing here is helpful. And if not, just tell me, and then I'll move on to the next thing. So we have a well here, right? So the Sherburne County, this was a Sherburne County addition. First thing that we wanted to know is before we even started with the structure, before we started with, opening it into their home, anything like that, we wanted just to make sure the logistics of it is correct so we're not wasting any time. So we're looking at the well. How far away is that going to be from the deck? And the biggest part of the well is the footing that we choose to use. How far away is that going to be? And it needs to be about 5 feet or so away from that well, which we made the deck and the addition literally as big as we could on that section. The next part was they had a septic system. So we had a 20-foot setback on the right side of the addition. So that really gave us, their addition at the end actually ended up being a little bit bigger than this. It ended up being about 24 by 24. And or maybe, yeah, so something like that. And then we also built the deck on the side. So when we're looking at the original floor plan, the first thing that we needed to do, one, was to make sure that the city components and things like that, everything was in line before we started spending, money on design and permits. So one way to do that is obviously looking it up on the city's website or calling in Sherburne County and City of Oak River. They do a good job at just communicating. You tell them what you want. They're like, how much impervious ground do you need? So let's go back to my fancy slides here. So hold on a second. Let me see if I press this button right. So let's go a little bit further here. So another thing that we're looking at, for example, on this edition, right, was the use of the space. So the impervious ground, they had about 5 acres, so it really didn't matter. But when you get to a closer city lot, especially if you're in the Maple Grove area or something like that, what ends up happening is that there's a thing called impervious ground. And what that means is how much asphalt or like decking or spots that the rain cannot go directly into the grass or ground, how much of that area is used versus the whole property. So for example, this project, before the addition, they probably had like 30% impervious ground, which means their concrete, deck, asphalt, whatever, shingles, that the area was covering. And then when we added the addition, it went up to about 38%. So this addition is actually almost 8% of the blueprint of the overall thing. And so that's one thing we want to look at that I didn't understand when I first found out. And it used to get me in a ton of trouble because I would do, I'd have a customer, hey, I want to do all these addition things and I want to make this big thing. And I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. And then I would pull the permit and be like, oh, the city didn't tell us we had to have setbacks and whatever. So anyways, that's just one that's easily avoidable. I mean, sometimes you still have to go through the steps through it, but all right. Is that everyone following me along here? We're doing pretty good. Thumbs up, little thanks, Justin, in the chat bar if you're following along. And if this is making sense, we're gonna move on. All right. So all right, really quick. So one more time, this edition, we literally found, it wasn't even the same siding. It was the siding that they had was discontinued, but we found something that was really similar. The main aspect of what they're trying to do, it was just create space for their grandkids, right? So I have a picture of like kind of the inside, what it ended up looking like down here. So this was like the 3D imaging that we try to do beforehand, and then with the addition on the inside, it's completely finished now. But I just wanted to show that we ended up, opening up 2 walls, putting a big beam in here. So now their kitchen goes into here, and their living room is all one fluent, just one big usable space for their kids. All right, moving on. All right, let's click this button. Okay, so
an addition we finished up a few months ago. We're just
every edition has its own aspects and things like that. This next project we're gonna go through was a job that we did in Maple Grove back in 20 something. I think it's 2021 or 2022. But I'm gonna kind of go through it's a good one to kind of use because there's so many things that happened with it. And one of the things with both of these, right, is the approximate cost, which I'm going to get into after the second project here. All right, so here we go. This is a project in Maple Grove. It was probably out of the difficulty of additions, this is probably on the top 2 or 3 that I've done in my career. And one of the reasons why was because it's right center of Maple Grove. They have right behind this house, they have it looks like trees, but it's actually like an apartment development, townhouses. So they don't have an HOA, but the city, they built so much around it that they're really particular, literally within the inch of how much footage that we wanted to use. So my original square foot that I wanted to use was over here. I'm gonna try to use my little my little writer device, and I lost my thing. Okay, so this bottom right, my first part of the addition was that we were gonna build a kitchen. Their original house, which I think I should show that quick because I don't think this has the original house. Hold on 1 second. Let's grab their original house really quick. Okay. So on this one, when we went through it, we were actually, man, I think this homeowner met with so many different people to try to get what she was envisioning. And the layout of this kitchen is so interesting for what she needed. All right, let's try to find this again. If it's gonna load, come on, load for me. And of course it's not loading. All right, let's try one more thing and then we'll move on. All right, so as I'm finding this, I'm gonna show you the before photos, and I think they'd be pretty good to know. All right, here we go. Let's move this over here. All right, so a couple things with this one is that the permit for Maple Grove, this project took me probably almost a month to 2 months to getting the permit. It was just really, really weird. But part of that reason was because with it wasn't like they just had like a requirement that they had that the peak of this needed to be the same. So what I mean by that, this gable end here, this and this right side, how it steps down, we made it into one continuous roof, and that was a really big situation because of the load bearing part that we had to do. Let's see here, let me grab portion of screen. Let's try this out. All right, so let's go see the original house. All right, this is her original kitchen. All right, so right now, what we ended up doing, right, is her range, which is on this back wall, the range went down, the sink, we moved to the front of the home. So the sink is actually where this window is now. The stairwell is still the same. And another part, so the sink is now here. And the fridge was one of the things that was really hard because there wasn't enough space on the floor plan for her fridge, no matter what, for how big of space you needed it. So one of the things that we did is like this wall here is behind this wall is a deck. So let me grab my thing again. So many screens up. All right, moving on. Okay. So what we did is that the range is actually really similar to where it was. And the fridge, we couldn't figure out where to put because anywhere we put it, it just was in an awkward space. So when we're looking at the addition starts right where the range is here. And so the goal of this one was more like the functionality of the kitchen, and then also she was thinking about, kids and just she was going into a different phase of life. So she just wanted something that was easy, that she could have more than one person in the kitchen, and then also have the aesthetic that she was looking for. So on this one, it wasn't so much the exterior layout that we could be creative on. It was really the interior, trying to make it look like when you're in the inside of the house that it was never touched. And so the way that we did that was that we copied the ceiling height, stuff like that, all the way through from the kitchen side into the addition. And we made it, there's like vault and non-vaulted. We made everything flat and a 9-foot ceiling for the inside of that kitchen area. And then the other part that we did was on the outside is obviously we copied so that we didn't have to move like a lot of her HVAC and stuff to because the budget part, but we copied her roof over. So when you look at this house on the back side or the front side, you actually have no clue it was ever an addition. Um, and it turned out like it was a hard project just because the house was kind of wonkety in it. There's just a lot of details on there it that it ended up working really well, but a lot of it had to be just literally like we had a big overall plan, but the way that was put together, just had to go step by step. Okay, let's keep going. All right, one other one that we were going to talk about is the addition above the garage. So this used to be a garage here on this left side, right side here. Does just used to be a gable. You can see the old roof. We made it, extended it, and gave them 2 bedrooms and a living room on the upstairs. And that's what it looks like now. I need to get final photos of it. Of the interior, we do have some photos of the interior, but so like using the space that you have, you don't always have to go on the back side of your house. You can go over the garage. There's so many different creative ideas. All right, let's talk a little bit about things that I wish I would have known, right? The first one is, where is the best spot for your addition, right? So if you're a rambler, typically it's on the back of your house or by the side of your garage. If it's a split level entry, one of the best ways that we always look, so like these guys have a split level, is to look going above the garage if that's an option. The other one is like 4-season porches and stuff are really great, but it's like knowing that what you want it to look like in the future, not just for the first 2 or 3 years. I think a lot of times we focus so much time and energy on things that are a problem now, but once when your kids move out or once when you're in a different stage of life, you wish you would have just spent a little bit more time on it and just thinking about not just next year, but maybe 3-4 years or 5 years down the road, that the space that you create, you never have to touch again. Okay. So, what's the first thing that you need to consider when you're starting an addition? One is, do you have the space and where's the addition going to go, right? Just doing a pros and cons list, make it simple. I think we overcomplicate things and we were like, well, we're going to do a 4-season porch. Well, that's great. Like, is there a way that you can, you don't have to bump out your kitchen today, but is there a way to use that addition space that you can bump out your kitchen 2-3 years later without having any issues? Is this making sense? Everyone following along? Everyone happy with me here? We're doing good. Got one yes. Nice. We got thumbs up. Thanks, guys. All right, what's the biggest mistake you've seen when people have made an attempt to do their addition? One of the things that I get called back as a contractor into a home that a homeowner started is kitchens and additions. Usually people have got plans from the lumberyard. They got they may even have their permit. But what happens most times is two things typically is where they get stuck. One is with the landscaping and the water flow of thank you. So one is the landscaping and the water flow of how the addition works. So even on, let me go back. So even on something like this.
Can The addition we finished
right?
a few months ago, we're just
It
finishing up.
so they have a hill that's on the left side, which the fence is on. So the hill that they have over there, we had to figure out landscaping wise, because when we were working on that addition, we moved some dirt, and they used to have an old addition. I mean, an old deck there. So when we were pulling, like dirt and stuff, we had to make sure that the grade was going far enough away from the house that the new roof from all this water that's on this roof, that it had somewhere to go. So that's the first and foremost, like the thing that I get called about is where the water, so where the roof meets the house, that's not adequately put together. Another one, which I don't have them on here, but I did an addition that was just like this. The other one is that the insulation of what they did for the addition, the insulation for the floor, and the floor, I don't know if I got a good picture of the floor on this one. So the insulation for the space that's needed between the floor joists, so is that it's adequate enough. So one, water, where does the water go? Two, insulation, so when the winter comes and it's like freezing outside, how is it going to be heated or cooled? That's probably the two things that you can pull permits for and give language to, but there's so many different ways to do it. So like this one on the left side, real quick, how we stop the wind from like entering it. So you can spray foam it, but spray foam isn't always in the budget. So one thing that you do is that you get foam. Like you go to Menards or Home Depot, you get like a 2-inch thing of foam. You put that on the top of your floor joist right here, and then you create about an inch of air to pocket there. So that way the air transformation, like the air cooling, like has space for the air to flow. So the condensation doesn't go directly onto that foam, but it has space to dry out. And that's another thing, is that the condensation from the insulation, that's where a lot of those water damage, if you ever go to like your friend's house or your parents' house, they have water underneath it that is damaged. It's typically not because they have like water coming from the roof underneath. A lot of times it's just because the insulation, they have pockets that the air can't transfer, and so it creates condensation and issues. All right, moving on. We are gonna land this plane, and so a couple quick tips. Here we go. Is one, understand the cost, right? Set a realistic budget. How do you set the realistic budget? Is you start with the design in mind. So that means not necessarily like the design of the windows and stuff like that. That is important, but we're talking about the layout. What is possible? What do you have to do in order to make what you're trying to do work? The second one is when the expectation of the budget happens. Typically, additions, you'll hear it, are usually anywhere from $65,000 to $200,000. And even if it's a simple 4-season porch on a new home build, 65,000, whatever, like with the deck, it all depends on the overall layout and structure that you're trying to do. And making sure that you're evaluating, you can look at the evaluating on the return on the investment. I would say the return on the relationships that you have when you're using that space, if you're hosting or if it's just for yourself. Exploring financing options, I can go into that later. So defining the goals. Is it a kitchen ultimately that you're looking to do and you're trying to make the addition happen first? Is it an addition that you're trying to get a bedroom so that your kids can stop sleeping in bunk beds or whatever? All those things matter, but if you're not adequately expressing it to your contractor or to your husband, with a checks and balance list of like pros and cons, making sure that you're getting that upfront and knowing that by the end of the time that you don't have any regrets on your project. Get the inspiration, consider layout options. We kind of went over that. Optimizing the space. One of the big things that's happening is as people are getting, the term is not, as people are to move out of their house when they're at an age in their house, to buy a house is like 600,000. So for example, if you're in Maple Grove, 500,000 for the current house that you may be living if you bought it earlier. So what happens is that when you're looking at when you turn 60, 70, 80 is how long are you going to be churning and how long do you want to stay in the current house that you're in? When you're making the addition, that is a great time to look and analyze that as you're getting older, like as I don't know how better to say it. We'll say it as it is. As you're getting older and you want to stay in your house longer term, making an addition so like for example, if it's a bedroom or if it's a bedroom on the main floor so that you can have that space or even a kitchen, expanding the kitchen so you have space and you're making it user friendly, right? So anyways, going forward. So let me see here. No, so local codes, you can get help with that through, calling the inspector or having your builder help you. And plan for the inspections is a really good one. Avoid penalties. We'll go into that probably on the next time. And then lastly, hire the right contractor. Sure, decide between architect and designer. Let's talk about that quick. So, got a couple more minutes. I want to hit on this. Is that let's talk about hiring. Who do you hire first? Architect, designer, or contractor? I say it depends. So I had this conversation on a podcast recently, and the question was is when I'm looking to do an addition or a renovation, a large renovation on my project, who do I hire first? The designer, the contractor, or an architect? Almost every time it depends on your budget. So if you know that your budget is going to be tight and that it's still a great budget, right? 150,000 depending on the scope of work obviously is a great budget. We've done projects, all across the board. 75,000 whatever. But it comes down to the scope of work, the electrician, HVAC, the main things like cabinetry if that's involved or the windows, which is one of the biggest costs that you'll have in your addition, is when you have those things set apart that um you're putting it on paper and making sure you're keeping track of those things. And so when you're giving it to a contractor, you're like, hey, my budget's 150. Is this possible to do it with? Versus if you go to a designer, you're paying however much for the designer, and they're giving you this really cool elaborate plan, and then you bring it to your contractor, and your contractor's like, sorry, I can't do half the stuff that you said. And now you're disappointed and it's not the designer's fault. They're not putting together the budget. And then so I would say depend if you have more free flow in your budget, go with the designer first. If you're more concrete in the price, go to the contractor first. And if let's see here. Did we run out of time? I don't know. Are we still here? I'm not sure. But anyways, if we're still here, let's finish with this, is that if you have an ultimate budget that you don't like, you can do a bunch of cool things because you have a huge budget for your project, go to an architect. But architects typically in a residential space, you don't always need them because your general contractor should have architectural experience and have the experiencing it for that thing. All right, that was a lot. I hope that you're able to follow along. Leave a comment or a message on questions or answers that you want, or even take on our email here that you'll get. You can go online and email us at info@XtraMile and take a picture of your project and I can give you my thoughts and opinions on it. Appreciate everyone who joined today. And if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to write it, or if you want me to get a little bit more in depth on something. But I think we got everything I think I covered everything. Hopefully, I think I got everything done. So minimize the disruptions, and we'll talk about